Welcome to Rubyvale Road. I'm Alexandra, and in this video I will be showing you how I made this little top from start of my inspiration, sketching out my ideas and putting it all together. I really hope that you enjoy. Please subscribe to Rubyvale Road and leave the video a thumbs up and let me know what you think in the comments down below. I've just loved this little top for so long that I want to try and recreate something similar and very inspired. So definitely little buttons down the front, maybe a little bit of elastic through the hem, and then a little drawstring along the top. Also would love to do maybe a little ruffle down the bottom with the beautiful, maybe little ruffled straps. Just not sure if I have 1, enough time, 2, enough fabric, 3, enough patience. But I'm going to just sketch some ideas out and see what I think. So for my little design, I'm thinking a gorgeous little drawstring neckline here. So that'll be a little bit ruffled, a little bit gathered. So just at the top of the little blouse. And then a beautiful, sweet little tie through, of course, to make the drawstring. And then maybe some ruffled straps. What do you think about ruffled straps? I'm not sure. I think they would add something very dainty and very pretty to the little top. And then it's going to be a little bit blousy because it is a bit bigger than it will be gathered in. And then along the bottom, going to do the elastic just sewn in so it's really easy. So that'll be quite gathered through there. And then I'm thinking like a really little cute little ruffle along the bottom. Might be really gorgeous. And then a little button placket, but I don't like doing buttonholes. I've never really actually done buttonholes on my machine, so thinking maybe just some buttons and loops like that. And I've got like the really cute little buttons to go through the front. I've got this beautiful cotton Liberty fabric. I purchased this from a fabric stash on Instagram. I think there's about 1/2 meter here, so there should be plenty for making a blouse. I've also got these gorgeous little white buttons, which I think just pair really sweet with this fabric, and it's just going to be the most gorgeous little welcome to spring top. So I've just written in my measurements here. So I've got my high bust, which I measured as 72 centimeters, and then my underarm to desired finish length coming in at 30 centimeters. So then I just need to sketch out my pattern pieces to make the top. So of course I'm going to have the big body of the top, which is just going to be one big rectangle that goes all the way around my body. I'm not going to bother with side seams or anything like that. So putting in my underarm to desired finish length is going to be 30 centimeters. Then I also want to do that little ruffle around the bottom, so that means I need to add on an extra 3 centimeters to allow for hem allowance and for the ruffle. I'm just going to have the ruffle at 2 centimeters, I think, so I just need that extra 1 centimeter to hem at the bottom just to hide the raw edges. So that's going to add on 3 centimeters, and then at the top, of course, I've got the drawstring, so I'm going to add on another 3 centimeters along the top as well. So altogether that's going to be 36 centimeters. Then for the width of the rectangle, which is going to be the part that goes all the way around my body, I've multiplied my high bust measurement, which is 72, by 1.5, so it's going to be 108 centimeters to allow for the gathers, and then I'm going to add 6 centimeters onto that so that I can create a little button placard. So that's going to then be 114 centimeters. So then I've just gone through and worked out all my pattern pieces. So I'm going to have one big rectangle for the body of the top, then I'm going to have 2 rectangles for the straps, multiplying the length of my straps by 1.5, so I've got enough room for gathers, which I'm just going to do with elastic, I've decided. And then I'm going to have 2 long skinny rectangles, which will be one for the drawstring along the top and one for the button loops along the front of the top. So of course I'm going to start with with the fiddly bits first. So I'm going to do the drawstring And then with right sides facing together, I'm just going to stitch the 2 straps. So now I'm just going to use scissors to trim down the excess seam on this, just so it's nice and thin, so I can turn it out with my loop turner. As you can see, this one here, I've already turned out the right way. So really annoyingly, my hook from the hook on the loop turner unlatched from the fabric that I was trying to pull the right way. So what I'm going to have to do, because I've tried hooking it back on but it's not working, so I'm just going to have to unpick a couple of stitches here where the end of the tie is, and then pull it out through that point there. I can just stitch that back closed and that's okay. It will just be top stitched, but that's fine. So that's how I'm going to try to fix that problem. Oh, it's a bit difficult. Got to be very, very gentle when you're turning things out the right way. So now there's just this part that hasn't been pulled out the right way, but I will thread the loop turner then through this way and hook it to the end up here and then pull it through. So here it is, just pulling it out from the other end, again having to be very, very gentle. So just tug on this end and then sort of pull them against each other. And then there's just going to be that little hole in the middle, but that's fine. I'm just going to do a top stitch to close that. So I've also got the 2 straps sewn, but I'm going to go and press these seams open nice and flat before I turn them out the right way. So now when I press these straps for the top, I'm just going to make sure that I press them with the seam in the center lying flat. So the seam isn't to the side for these. I'm just going to put the seam underneath at the back in the center. So just press that nice and flat like so. So now I'm going to start piecing everything together on the top. So I'm going to start with doing the little button loops first down this edge. So I've worked out I'm going to cut them about, I think, 5.5 centimeters. So just using my tape measure to measure that. And then once you've cut the first one, you can use that as the measurement for all the others. So I just need 6 of these. So now I have my 6 little loops, and then I'm going to use my chalk and my tape measure to measure out on this side what I've done on this side, which is measuring where they all need to go. So of course, first of all measuring 3 centimeters, and then measuring down, I measured about 7 centimeters to leave for the opening, and then from there I'm going to measure every 4 centimeters. And then make sure that the raw edges of the loop are lined up with the raw edges of the fabric. So that's that all pinned in place there, and then I'm just going to do this with a little short stitch to stitch over each one just so it's in place. And then I've just cut this extra piece here which I'm going to use just to neaten up the edges here where I put the loops. And then I'm going to stitch it to the blouse with right sides facing together, stitching it across the top, down the side, and then along the bottom, and then leaving this edge open. So now I've got my lovely button placket stitched in just on this side. So just something I forgot to mention earlier, don't stitch it all the way to the raw edge, just fold over 1 centimeter and stitch that down when you stitch it along the top and along the bottom, because this needs to be folded over when we turn it out over to the other side. And to turn it out over to the other side, so with the corners, you fold it across and then you fold this under so that you have a really nice neat corner there, and then you can just turn it out the right way, and you can use a pin or whatnot just to help with poking it out extra sharp then, or a ruler probably works better. But we're just going to do the same then up at the top as well. Of course I've ironed everything, and I've also ironed under the 0.5 centimeter here as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some top stitching. So I'm just going to top stitch along there just to keep the loops nicely in place, and then top stitch, well, it'll be a top stitch, but I'm going to stitch it from underneath here just so I can line it up nicely on my presser foot and stitch that closed there too. And then for the other side where we're going to sew the buttons, I've just folded under 1 centimeter and then folded under 2 centimeters to then create the little placket here where we're going to stitch the buttons. And again, I'm going to do a top stitch right along the fold and then a top stitch to stitch this closed here. The only thing I'm thinking now is that I think these loops are too big and too bulky. I'm thinking if I'm going to change them, now is the time to change, but I'm just going to leave it as it is. Just keep it as, I guess, a bit of an oversized detail. I think they look quite bulky because it is a fine print of the fabric, but we'll just see how it goes. So I've just done this white top stitching, but unfortunately I think it looks really cheap, so I'm going to unpick it, and I've got some blue thread here which I'm going to instead use for the top stitching so it doesn't look quite so cheap. So now I've stitched all the top stitching. So incredibly glad that I changed the colour from white for the top stitching to a matching blue. I think it looks a hell of a lot better. It is quite wide here. Again, probably wish that it was a little bit more narrow just to match the same as what the buttons would be. But all in all, I'm actually really not that fussy. It's just things that I notice and I think, oh well, next time I will remember that, and it's a good lesson learnt. But when I'm actually wearing it, I'm not too fussy. So now we're going to move on to creating the casing for the drawstring. So we're just going to fold under like 1 centimeter and then folding over 2 centimeters and just stitching that all the way along the top of the blouse. I always say on top of the top, but I think the top of the blouse probably sounds a lot better. So we're going to do that. So I've just hemmed the top, so I've created the casing for the drawstring all the way along the top then. And then I also, while I was at it, I just decided that I would hem the bottom as well. So I've just done the first row of stitching, but I also need to do a second row of stitching now so I can create a channel for my elastic. So I've just got this nice, quite firm elastic. It's less than 1 centimeter wide, so nice and thin, and I'm just going to create another little channel. I'm going to do my channel about 1 centimeter just so it's got a little bit of room to move so I can slide that elastic through nice and easily, and then it will leave a little ruffle along the bottom of the hem. So I just cut my piece of elastic. To measure that, I just measured around where the top will finish, and then I subtracted 2 inches just so it's got a nice amount of stretch and it'll be nice and firm. And then I've just got myself a little safety pin here, and I'm just going to pin the safety pin onto the elastic, and then I can thread the elastic through the little channel which we've created. Once you've pulled your elastic through to the other side, make sure that you don't lose this end, so definitely pin that in place. We're just going to line the edge of the elastic up with the edge of the fabric. If you want to try the top on before you cut the elastic, just in case you need to tighten it, that's a great idea. And then once you've got the right measurement on the elastic, just sew that end down and trim off the excess of the elastic so it's nice and neat, but just top stitch that in place, and of course do the same on the other end. Look how cute it is with the ruffle. Oh my goodness, I absolutely in love with that, with the little bit of elastic. It's just created such a gorgeous little gather around the bottom of the top. Just even the gathers out, so push them through and just even them out. And look how sweet the little gather is along the bottom edge. I think it's so gorgeous. So stitch each end of the elastic in place, and then I'm going to use the safety pin to then do the drawstring around the top of the blouse. But before I do that, sorry, I'm all over the place when I'm sewing things for the first time and coming up with a process. So before I do that, I am going to mark, while this is still nice and flat, or as flat as it can be considering I've now put the elastic in, just mark where I need to sew my buttons as well through the front here. So I've got my safety pin attached here on the inside to the tie which I made, and I'm just threading that through the top channel. Alright, so I have tried the top on and I'm having a little bit of a realization. I actually prefer it with the elastic along the top of the top and the drawstring down along the bottom. One would think, well, that's really easy to change. You turn the top upside down. Unfortunately, this has got a one-way pattern, so I think that I should do it the right way and remove this elastic and make another channel here so that I can have the elastic and the pattern going the right way, and then move this drawstring up into this little channel here, which I'm kind of happy about because then I'll have like a little ruffle, the balanced ruffle at the top and the bottom rather than just the gather with the drawstring. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. So here I've got the other way around with the drawstring along the top and the elastic down the bottom. I don't entirely hate it, like it's still very kind of cute and what I was going for originally, obviously. The reason I don't feel particularly comfortable with the drawstring at the top is I just don't feel secure. Like elastic really holds you in. Like if I undid the drawstring, like the whole top would fall down, and I don't particularly like that feeling. I think it's going to be a little bit more effort, but I'm going to put that channel in along the top here and thread the elastic through and then swap the drawstring down to the bottom channel. Hopefully they all fit in with each other. I put a little skirt on because those shorts were just really bad. I know that. I'm sorry. This skirt obviously doesn't go with the top, but we're just making it work for now because it's nice and high-waisted, so it doesn't show that weird midriff that those shorts were showing, which is highly inappropriate. I'm sorry. So now I have changed over the top and the bottom, and I'm so happy with it. It was actually a really quick, fast thing to change, so that was great. So I've got the little drawstring along the bottom now with the frill, and I actually think that the drawstring sits so much better when it's in the tighter little channel that I originally made with the elastic, so that's working really well. And then I've just put the elastic along the top, made a new channel for that, and stitched it in, stitched the edges in. It does want to sit out, so I'm not sure if I should do the same and make a little tie and tie it up at the top as well. So next up is the straps. So I've got the seam pressed at the back, so underneath the strap, so this is the top of the strap, and underneath I've got the seam pressed in the center. So then taking my elastic, which is about 30 centimeters long, and the length of the strap is about 54 centimeters long, I'm just going to pull the elastic as I stitch so that it will gather up the strap. So I'm just going to attach the top of the elastic to the end of the strap, tucking in the raw edges of the strap. Just like so. And then just doing the same at the other end of the strap, of course making sure that your elastic is nice and flat. Now if I was using the same colour top stitching on the top and bobbin of my sewing machine, I would just do it from underneath. It would be really easy, but I'm just using the blue only in my spool of thread, not in my bobbin, so I actually have to do it from the top and just stretch the elastic underneath as I stitch. It's not super difficult, it's just not the best way of being accurate. I did have to do the other strap a couple of times to get all of the elastic stitched in. But as you can see, so I'm just pulling this back here so the elastic's nice and stretched out, as stretched as it can be, and then trying to see underneath there, make sure it's all lined up with the seam. Ta-da! And there's our little gathered strap. Isn't it just the cutest thing ever? It's so cute. So now that I've got my little top, I've just tried it on again, and I've just positioned where I want the straps to go. So to attach the straps to the blouse, I'm just going to top stitch them on over the top stitching where I sewed the channel for the elastic at the top. So doing that at the front and then again at the back. So it's stitched in two places just to make it really secure, and there you can see it on the inside, and it'll work really well. And then I've only pinned one strap, and then I can just measure it from the center front here to the edge there, and then somehow at the back I'll line them up to make them symmetrical. I am so in love with these straps with this ruffle detail. That is like the easiest way of doing it, just stitching that elastic stretched onto the fabric, and it's just adorable. I gave them a really good press and a steam so that they sit flat now and the gathers are nice and spread out, and I just think it looks adorable. So there I have the two straps stitched on. And also while I was at it, I went and stitched a little tie at the top of the elastic, so I can also have a little bow at the top as well as the bottom, just to keep that elastic, because it did come apart when I had it on because it was stretchy, and I much prefer it with that little tie, I think, just to keep it together. It looks really cute. And so now the last thing I have to do is to just stitch the buttons along the front. So here we have it, the finally completed little top. I am so happy with it. I just think that it's really, really pretty and really gorgeous and just like the perfect little welcome to spring, perfect start to my sewing adventures for the spring and summer. I definitely much prefer the warmer weather for sewing. I just really don't have as much inspiration in the winter months. Of course, as you saw through the process, there were probably a few things I would definitely do different in the future, and you also saw that as I went along I made a few changes with the design and whatnot, but overall finished product, I'm thrilled and just so excited to wear it. I've got it on with this beautiful linen circle skirt that I made last December, and I think they just pair beautifully together. It just ties in with the buttons perfectly, you know, everything comes together eventually. And great lesson to learn in sewing, of course, is that things might go wrong and things might not turn out quite as you planned, and you might have a few setbacks here and there, but in the grand scheme of things, things turn out. And I can guarantee that at the end of it all, you're always going to be happy with something that you made because you made it, and so you put a lot of love and a lot of time into it, and I hope that you always appreciate all of your efforts. So of course, if you do end up making a little top like this, I would love to see it, so please tag Rubyvale Road, hashtag Rubyvale Road on Instagram, and please leave the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the Rubyvale Road YouTube channel. I really, really appreciate it, and I'd love to see you again in my future videos.